Good morning, my name is Bohi and I am in 10th grade at Digital Design High School. Today I will be presenting for my English and History POL. I will start off with my English. To begin, I'm going to do a character analysis on Clarice. Clarice McLean is an interesting character who adds a little twist to the story, with her very inquisitive, observant, and influential personality. To begin, she is very inquisitive. On one of her daily walks with Montauk, she questions him. How did it start? How did you get into it? How did you pick your work, and how did you happen to think to take your job you have? You are not like the others. Moreover, she questions Montauk. She shows her curiosity by questioning Montauk on why and how she became a fireman. Also, she says that he is different. And by different is because he looks her in the eyes while talking, and he doesn't try to walk away or threaten her. Moreover, she is very observant. On one of the last talks that she had with Montauk before her disappearance, which is rumored that she was killed, she tells him, "I like to watch people. Sometimes I ride the subway all day and look at them and listen to them, but they all say the same things." This shows that she pays close attention to people by saying they all say the same things, and by this she means that they do short talk, they're like, "Oh, that's well," they don't really interact with each other. Lastly, she is very influential. And throughout the book, she has influenced Montauk in various ways. Before Montauk was forced to burn his house down, he turned and looked at Clarice's house. And Betty saw that, and he's like, "Forget about her. She brainwashed you," and basically she's dead now. Just forget about her. And however, he responded by saying she saw everything. She didn't do anything to anyone. Saying that, in a way, this influenced him because Clarice didn't let the society change her views of what she believed in. Like, if she wanted to go talk to people, she would talk to people. And if she wanted to go outside in nature, she would go outside in nature. And this influenced Montauk because before he met Clarice, he was very prideful in what he did. And after she kind of opened his eyes that, it's okay to do something that society doesn't agree upon. So that's when he started getting into books, because he had him hidden in his theater place. And he got into books, and he just started reading books, which was a big influence with Clarice. Now I would like to transition to my American and French Revolution presentation. My thesis statement is the French and American Revolution were similar that they were both fighting for change. However, they were different and that they both fought in distinctive ways, which led to American being successful and the French not as successful. To begin, I'll start with the American Revolution. The American Revolution is when American colonists fought for their independence from England. The Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson, and it was written because Americans claimed that the king was a bad ruler and didn't represent American colonists in Parliament. Also, they believed that the king was violating their natural rights, which is life, liberty, and property, which comes from Enlightenment thinker John Locke, who believes in natural rights, and that it's okay to overthrow your government if they are failing to protect your natural rights. Lastly, they felt that the king no longer had the consent of Americans. And an example of this would be the stamp act. They didn't really take the Americans into consideration, nevertheless asked them to be part of that decision and giving them that act. Which leads to my next point on overthrowing the government. They were inspired by Enlightenment thinkers Jacques Rousseau and John Locke. And as I mentioned earlier, John Locke believes in natural rights. And Jacques Rousseau believes that people should be allowed to vote and be in those decisions. And the power of the government comes from the people. Which leads to my next event are the Stamp Act, Tea Tax, and Intolerable Acts. They are the causes of the French Revolution. The Stamp Act. The Stamp Act is basically a tax passed by British Parliament saying that they tax papers and such as newspapers or documents or permits, and Americans had to pay taxes for this, which made Americans angry. And if that wasn't enough, they passed a tea tax, and Americans love to drink tea. So the fact that they taxed the tea made them infuriated, which caused them to give an act of rebellion when they threw over the tea in the Boston Harbor. This made British officials very angry. And they closed Boston Harbor until it was all paid off. This led to the Intolerable Acts. British officials were allowed to settle in Americans' homes. Also, they were, if they committed a crime, they were allowed to put it British and do the trial there, which was unfair to Americans because this gave the British more kind of an advantage. So this led to the war and the Americans won. With this, they wrote the U.S. Constitution. Although many writers were involved, James Madison was the main author. They used Baron de Montesquieu's enlightenment ideas of checks and balances and separations of power. Checks and balances are separations of power are three branches that check each other off, which is judicial, executive, and legislative. Also, this established a federal system. However, people feared that the government had too much power and it didn't protect people's rights. So they came up with the solution of the Bill of Rights. This prevented government abuse and protected the basic rights of the people. Two examples of these rights would be freedom of speech, press, religion, political assembly, and trial by law. Now, I'll move on to my evidence. This is a quote from David Hume. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. Against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath and information, and particularly describing the place to be searched, and persons or things to be seized. So basically, it's saying that the government can't just storm into your house just because they have a cause, that they need permission from the court in order to do that, which protected them, the citizens. Now I'll move on to the French Revolution. The French Revolution had three main goals: to eliminate social inequality and to eliminate absolute monarchy, and to build a representative government. King Louis XVI was the King of France, and he was very undecisive and uninterested in government affairs, which was one of the reasons why he became a weak leader. He was married to Marie Antoinette, and she was a big spender and loved gambling, which made the French hate her. They were one of the causes of the French Revolution, one of the four causes of the French Revolution. They represented weak leadership because due to King Louis's inability to rule, he basically brought down their empire because he lacked on making important decisions. Also, economic crisis. This was a big one because they taxed the real estate so much that small businesses weren't able to strive, and it just brought them down and it didn't let them be successful. Also, enlightenment and inspirations, such as John Locke or Jacques Rousseau, because they were the biggest inspiration in the French Revolution. And lastly, social inequalities. There was three French states: the first, second, and third. The third was the one who was treated most unfairly, although they were made up of most of the population. Which leads me to my next point, the French estates. The first estate was made of clergy members, such as the people in the Catholic Church. The second estate was made of high nobles and high positions. Lastly, the third estate was made of the middle class, burghers, the lower class, and peasants. The French Revolution is broken down into a series of events. The first event is the States General. The States General was a meeting called because King Louis taxed the second estate, and since they don't pay taxes, they got very angry with this. So in the States General meeting, it's basically when three representatives from each estate vote in this decision making of who's gonna, if whatever there is that they're voting on, that's what the Central States General meeting was, to pretty much vote on who they were going to tax. And since each vote counts, as each estate counts as one vote, it was very easy to outvote the third estate. Also, this led to the National Assembly. The third estate felt unfairly treated representatives by the second and first estate, so they came up with the National Assembly. After voting and debating all night, they came up with the National Assembly, which is to eliminate absolute monarchy and put a beginning to representative government. So 3 days later, they were locked out of their meeting room, so they went to this tennis court, and they promised not to leave until they had a new French Constitution. And this worked because the Constitution was created, and later on the second and the first estate joined them. While the Constitution was in the making, the violence rates went up, such as the fall of Bastille. Since King Louis wanted to protect himself, he sent his guards outside his palace to guard him, and the people felt threatened by that. So they attacked the prison of Bastille, and because it was rumored that there were weapons and gunpowder, and that was symbolic because it was the first act of violence, which led to a greater amount of violence in the Great Fear, which was the spread of violence because they were attacking noble homes and killing them and pretty much torturing them. This led to the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, which was inspired by enlightenment thinkers, and it protects people's rights. Also, it has it references to the U.S. Constitution. After this document, the revolution became a big mess, such as the September Massacre, where they had imprisoned a whole bunch of nobles, and the peasants were so angry that they attacked those nobles, and they just killed them, all of them, and they tortured them. Later, they didn't really have rulers, so the Jacobins came and they pretty much ruled for them. Like, they were their rulers, and the third estate liked them because they agreed on everything that Strategies believed in, and they sent King Louis and Queen Marinette to be over. And then this led to the Reign of Terror, where Maximilian Robespierre was now the leader, and he believed that it was okay to make people scare people, and in order to ensure that they didn't go back to the way King Louis believed. And then lastly, Napoleon took over. Everyone was happy because he treated everyone equally, and the tasks were equally distributed from the first estate, second estate, and third estate. Also, but he failed in 3 causes, which was the continental system, the Peninsular War, and the invasion of Russia. That's what he did wrong. And for my evidence, I used men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Social distinctions may be found only upon the general public. This goes because since the third estate was the lowest, very poor, and the first estate and the second estate always thought they're better than them, this shows that social distinctions are they're not going to be there anymore, only if they are shown for the better good. Lastly, I want to compare and contrast. The similarities were that they were both violent, and they both passed political documents, and that they're both inspired by enlightenment thinkers. However, America ended up in a democracy, and France ended up in a democratic democracy. And lastly, the amount of cruelty used. American Revolution was not a lot of amount of cruelty, but the French Revolution, they used a massive amount of cruelty, and it was really unnecessary in my opinion. I am now ready to present my DBQ.
Source search.
The question was, what is the cartoonist saying about the relationship among the three states in France? And I put among the relationship between the three states, the cartoonist is saying that the third state is being held down by taxes, and the other two states are the reason why. For instance, right here, it's a big old rock that says taxes on it, and the man on the floor represents the third state. It looks, in a way, it's kind of saying that the taxes are holding the third state down, and it's not letting them be successful. At least the second and first estate are standing on top of that rock in a prideful manner, almost if they want the third state to down. Among the relationships between the three estates, the cartoonist is saying that the third estate is being held down by taxes, and the other two estates are the reason why. By looking at the man on the ground, who represents the third estate, and the rock on top of him, which labels taxes, it is easy to conclude that taxes are bringing him down and are preventing him from being successful. And my analysis is that the two men above the rock, who are from the first and second estate, are standing pridefully, almost as if they intend for the third estate to fail.
Okay, and then why do you think they want the third estate to fail?
Because if they fail, if they fail, they become the powerful estate. They are powerful, and if in order if they're weak, they don't have to pay taxes. They just make the third estate pay taxes.
Okay.
The puppy.
Where did the comma?
I put it right here.
Did you erase it?
Yeah, because I kind of felt. Well, I put it right there, but in a way, I kind of felt that it wasn't a natural pause. It kind of went with the sentence.
Why?
Because it was an independent and then independent, so there wasn't really a natural pause, and also it just it flowed with the sentence. The budget called all the slippers from under the bed and shredded all the toilet paper.
No, right track. Why did it flow? What's there?
An independent or dependent?
Yeah, what specifically what word there?
A sentence?
No. In the sentence.
Oh, and? Oh, it's a conjunction.
Yeah, thank you.